Right, we're here at the... Oh, goodness.
Where are we?
Great
We're at the Burston Crown. In Burston. Yeah, Burston. We're at the Crown in Burston.
Right. Yes, indeed.
We knew that.
That's where we are.
We're here.
We're here with Suki Silvertongue, a.k.a. Sue Squire. So, we've just had a fabulous evening. Tell us all about how Suki Silvertongue came about.
Okay, well, so I've been telling stories for about 20 years. Starting off with family storytelling and then sort of moving into doing more stuff for adults. And I've always had this this conversation over the years with people when I tell them I'm a storyteller and they say, oh, who do you do storytelling with? And I said, well, I do children's storytelling and I do adult storytelling, but not, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, adult storytelling. And then I just had a little light bulb moment last year at some point when I just thought, oh, actually, maybe I could do adult storytelling. And initially I thought to seek out bawdy tales, and then I thought, actually, I'm going to take tales that people recognise and sort of do kind of bawdy versions of those. And then around about that time, a friend of mine asked me to write something in verse for her for a play that she was writing, and I just started kind of getting my head into thinking in verse and decided that I would, make this act, a poetry spoken word act. So that's how it all came about.
Fantastic.
Excellent. So do you do more Suki Silvertongue stuff or more Sue Squire stuff with children and family?
So I've basically got three different personas. So I've got Suki Silvertongue, I have Tilly the Tail Spinner, which is my children's stuff, and I still continue to do Tilly the Tail Spinner.
Tilly the Tail Spinner.
Yeah, so that's my wholesome family storytelling stuff, which I still do a fair bit of. And then I've got Sue Squire, which is kind of serious storytelling, and I am interested in sort of exploring some of life's more kind of meaty issues through sort of me telling as myself. So yeah, I like the variety of it.
Do you have a favourite of your personas, or are they all just like your children? You can't.
Yeah, it's not a bit. Yeah, it's a bit like I like them all in different ways. I think I get to if I'm doing a lot of gigs in one particular thing, I really enjoy doing something else for a bit, because I think it's just the novelty of stuff, isn't it? But I do really enjoy the Suki Silvertongue stuff, because it's given me an opportunity to really do something different by actually writing poetry and challenging myself to learn them, because I went right from the beginning, as a storyteller in the oral tradition, to read something off a page isn't generally what I tend to do. So,
and with storytelling, sort of when it's not in verse, it's fairly free form, isn't it? So that you don't have to learn every word. You learn the story and then you tell it as it
you just know the journey, the bare bones, and you put the flesh on the bones. And sometimes you don't really know how that story is going to be told, and you can be responsive to the audience and the sort of language that you're using. Whereas obviously doing this act, it's like the words are what they are.
See, that's one thing I find absolutely amazing, because both Jane and I are story writers, but I wouldn't necessarily say we're storytellers.
No, it's very different.
It's a very different art form, and I admire you, even when you kind of go, oh, I've forgotten that one line out of a 10,000 line poem.
I know. There's this big part of me is going, oh, they're going to think I'm awful because I forgot a line. That's all they're going to remember.
But I just, it's not a question or anything at all like that. I just think that's absolutely amazing that you can
learn all of that.
Yeah, but like you said earlier, it's all about kind of muscle memory, isn't it?
It is, and it feels like it's literally muscle memory sometimes, with kind of like, in the way that, when you drive a car, you don't need to think about what you're doing, and therefore, and it's almost the same with, like it is with songs that we know really well. We don't have to think which lines, so we're not kind of going, what line is it next? We just know it.
I was reading a book and singing ABBA songs yesterday, which I thought was quite bizarre, really. The singing was muscle memory.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it comes in very handy.
So how did you get involved in storytelling in the first place? What brought you down that road?
Well, I think I did a little bit of storytelling when I was at college. We did a module in storytelling, and I can still remember the first story which I told, which was the story of Persephone and Demeter, and not knowing much about storytelling at the time. We did it for an acting skills module, I think. And
was it a drama college?
It was actually I studied down in Torquay. It was actually drama in the community, so I trained to be a facilitator of drama in the community, which is actually what I did for the sort of earlier part of my career. So I did this story, and I just remember feeling like I was almost like learning it word for word, and I hadn't sort of got that whole idea of, you know, just getting the journey and stuff. And then after I left college, and after I'd done various jobs working in laundry factories and sandwich bars and chambermaid,
the glamorous life,
the glamorous
of a writer.
Yeah. I joined a theatre and education company which was run by a storyteller, and a lot of the stuff that we did was based in storytelling, so I kind of got into storytelling through that, really.
Where was that based?
That was down in Bridgewater Arts Centre.
Okay, down in...
Which is the oldest down in Somerset.
Somerset.
Yeah, oldest art centre in the country. So yeah, I was based in the company there, and that's how I sort of picked up storytelling. And then sort of over the years, the storytelling was always a thread of what I did. And actually for quite a while I did storytelling in schools with this gentleman here, Mr. Mark Scott Ison, who used to go by the name of Obi Joyful, and we used to go into schools and do storytelling performances and workshops. Meanwhile, I was doing quite a lot of stuff at the Arts Centre, kind of facilitating work with groups of young people and stuff. And then when I came up to Norfolk, I just decided to kind of focus on the storytelling because of the sort of just the simplicity of the form, and it just kind of felt like the thing that I was most interested in. And I think sort of over the years, I've just really started to just kind of recognise how much scope there is with storytelling, and how just what an amazing thing it is, and how many different places you can go with storytelling.
So how long have you been in East Anglia, the sunny climes of the Far East?
For just over 10 years. I moved up here on Christmas Day 2016. Yeah, the roads were really quiet. I thought that was to me. Yes, I've been up here nearly 11 years. 2006. Oh, yeah, not 2016. 2006. Yes, I said earlier on I'm a poet, not a mathematician. So yes, 2006. Yes, yeah.
How has audience responded to you? Have you ever had any kind of negative responses from audiences when you've been telling stories or poetry?
I don't know. I mean, I used to do solo theatre, and I did do a really sort of intimate performance once in a very beautiful, like, little theatre that only sat 20 people. And there was one guy, and he was sitting right in the middle of the front row, and he just sat there like that, looking like he was really hating it. I've done a couple of Suki gigs where there's just been maybe, you know, there's often like maybe one person in the audience who's just looking like they're really not enjoying it. But I haven't actually had anyone come up and say, "Oh God, that was terrible," or "That was really filthy. How could you? It's disgusting," or whatever. So, because it's not.
Have you ever performed at the Edinburgh Festival?
Years ago, I took. Gosh, when was that? That was back in 2002 or something. I think 2002, it was a long time ago. I took a solo theatre piece up there for 2 weeks. I basically had a really cheap venue, a really cheap time slot, only there for 2 weeks. And I performed at that. I mean, I would love to take this act up there sometime.
Suki would work.
But it's kind of like you've got to find so much money up front to take a show to Edinburgh, which is a real pain in the arse. And I've sort of missed the boat. Years ago, actually not that long ago, a few years ago, the Arts Council was doing kind of East to Edinburgh programme where East Anglian artists had an opportunity to sort of like have their, you know, performance up in Edinburgh, funded or partially funded, but unfortunately that was before I'd come up with it. I would like to do it there sometime. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, excellent. So would I.
Yeah, and it's the middle of the festival season as well. And actually, I really love. That's the thing. It's like if I was to go up to Edinburgh, I would have to not do quite a few of my favourite local festivals. And
So what are your favourite? How far afield do you go now when you're doing festivals?
I'm not very far afield at all actually these days. Harlequin's always my favourite, which is just up the road near Scotland. I mean, I grew up in Glastonbury, and most years since I was 18, I've been at Glastonbury, although not for the last 2 years, which has made me very sad. But I would really, really like to take Suki Silvertongue to Glastonbury maybe in a couple of years. They've got a fallow year next year, but the year after I'm like, I'm gonna do it. That's the plan. So, yeah.
And don't forget the East Anglian Storytelling Festival.
Of course, the East Anglian Storytelling Festival. Yes, of course, the East Anglian Storytelling Festival, which is still. I think we had our third one of those this year, didn't we, at the Locks at Galveston, which is great, and that is growing year on year, which is really lovely because there is a great, there's such a great tradition of storytelling in East Anglia.
I'm so excited to found storytelling and to realise that it's not just something that's for children.
Oh yeah,
but it makes me feel like a child. I feel like I want to sit on the carpet with my legs crossed, kind of gazing up at somebody telling a story. And every storytelling thing that we've been to, no matter who's telling the stories, I'm just in awe and gazing at them like they're this amazing, grown up, and I'm a child again. And it just really takes me back to that really nice childhood feeling.
It's such a magical thing, and I think it's just incredible, and just the community as well. It's such a sort of generous kind of community. I think the storytelling community, especially in East Anglia, there's a lot of sharing of stories, and there's so much diversity in it as well. From stuff that's really hilarious to stuff that's like very sort of deep and poignant.
I think for a long, long time there was this sort of this lie, almost King's New Clothes lie, that actually you change as you grow up from being a child to an adult, then you become different, and you don't.
No.
You just layer on top of the child this whole lot of responsibility. And actually, a group of adults listening to a story are just as keen to do audience participation and knock on the table.
Absolutely. They do. Somebody said once, didn't they, that we don't stop playing because we grow up. We grow up because we stop playing.
So this kind of gives you that little into going back into that childhood.
That playfulness.
See, now we've got this, the new jargon, and we can talk about having a child. It's giving us permission to embrace the child life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you have storytelling in your life, it's kind of. Stories are like medicine, and there's, you can always find a story that helps you whatever you might be going through. And I think, when you sort of spend so much of your life kind of inhabiting this world of stories, it's kind of, it just kind of makes life a much nicer journey.
If you think about the amount of time we spend immersing ourselves in stories, whether it be television or books or films or even computer games, we spend a lot of our we choose to spend a lot of our leisure time immersing ourselves in stories in one way or another.
In narrative. There's a book which I would highly recommend called The Storytelling Animal. Have you come across this at all? I can't remember the name of the author. The Storytelling Animal. I think it's because they've got a slightly complicated to pronounce surname.
As we talk about that, we've got two dogs walking in.
Oh, look, there we go. Here's our own storytelling animal. Yes, the storytelling animal. That's perfect. Thank you. So the storytelling animal, which is all about basically how we are absolutely hardwired for narrative, and it does talk about things like computer games and multi-platform games. Just how we seek out narrative in all areas of our life, consciously or unconsciously.
So when you're not telling stories, who do you like listening to tell stories?
Who do I like listening to tell stories? Gosh, I like... excuse me. I like listening to almost anyone telling a story, really. I like listening to Mark here because he's got a very comedic way of telling stories. John Rowe I particularly like because he's just a legend. And I just like his style, he's just like, you walk around a festival with him, he's like knows everybody and everyone's stopping and he's just like, he'll just tell the story at the drop of his top hat. Paul Jackson, I really like his, he has a very, really sort of deep telling, kind of a real sort of sense of the deep magic of storytelling that he tells. So Taffy Thomas, when he comes to the storytelling, he's a patron of our storytelling festival. He's great. Suzanne Story. I think I feel like I've got to list them all off now. Because otherwise I'll be missing somebody out. Jerry Donald and the Irish. Barnes Aloud, Adrian, who's just gone to Japan. I think I just love hearing anyone tell a story. Really, I love hearing it when people who don't consider themselves to be storytelling. I think this is the thing about the storytelling clubs in East Anglia, which is so great. It's like, although you do have the sort of regular names, some of them professional, some of them semi-professional, you do get people who aren't storytellers and maybe have never told a story before, and it's just lovely, kind of like hearing people, and seeing people kind of like actually standing in that place of telling a story and just engaging with their audience. And the thing is, even if they're really nervous when they're telling it, it kind of doesn't really matter, because I think, you know, anyone that will get up and tell a story is just great.
Yeah. So what's coming up next for you in any three of your guises?
So I've got as Suki, I've got the poetry brothel in Colchester.
I used to live in Colchester. And I never knew anything about this.
Yeah, well, this is absolutely brand new. It's the inaugural event. So there's a poetry brothel in London. They are starting to pop up around the place.
So if this was well,
interesting.
you could push for one to pop up in Norwich.
Well, yeah, absolutely. That might be quite interesting, mightn't it? So that's quite because the audience are really integral to that event, because there's a lot of sort of one-to-one, you know, sort of storytelling at table going on.
Does sound fascinating.
Poetry. Actually, that's poetry. That's not storytelling. That sounds great. And then I'm doing some stuff up at Felbrigg. That's at Tilly the Tailspinner, doing some winter tales up there as part of a team with Liam Carroll, another great storyteller, and Jim Kavanagh, who we never really see him on the because he's not really part of the storytelling scene, but he does get out and do stuff, and he is fantastic. So we're all going to be doing winter tales, and I'm currently also putting together a bid to do a piece about mortality, because I'm very interested in death and sort of attitudes towards death in our society. So as Sue Squire, with my sort of serious hat on, I'm looking at collaborating with a shadow puppeteer and a sound artist to do a piece that's using kind of stories, but also sort of latest kind of thinking in psychology and philosophy to kind of look at to sort of explore attitudes towards mortality and how it affects our lives, and the whole sort of myth of immortality and that sort of thing. So yeah, all sorts of different things.
So you're very busy.
Yes.
Well, we look forward to seeing you again and again and again
absolutely.
as we kind of keep stalking you at Gelston.
Oh,
And thank you very much, Suki Silvertonge.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you.